Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for being here. This is the first episode of my brand new series, Changing Perspectives. If you haven't seen my introduction on what this series is all about, then you can check that out. But basically, I'm going to address a question or a comment or a suggestion that I've had from one of you, and we're going to open up some spectrum thinking, as I'm going to call it, around that rather than being so black and white. So the suggestion that I've had this week is talking about why you may not want to change. I've checked with them and they are happy for me to share this with you. So the suggestion is from Florence47, and I'm just going to read this out. I was just wondering if you could talk about the different reasons why people don't want to get better and how to address those kinds of thoughts. Is that common in practice? And there's some more information here. I am in the, I think, unusual position of having no support. I don't have friends or a girlfriend, and I'm not emotionally open with my family, so they don't know I have depression. To some extent, I know what to do to get better, but I kind of don't want to. Although this sounds awful, I want people to love me for me, not just the confident, happy, attractive me. For example, I had a huge heartbreak 2 years ago and I haven't met anyone since. Absolutely, I can attract someone if I improve myself, but you're not supposed to look back on the worst time of your life and think it didn't change until I changed. I don't know if I can take pride in that. That kind of gets me into a deadlock, of course. After you start medication and therapy, you'll probably start to get your head around these issues very quickly, and it sounds kind of self-serving. The more you put off getting help, the worse it'll get. Sorry about the length, but I hope it was helpful. Now, I love this, that was so in depth. Like, there's nothing to apologise for that at all. It's really great to get a good idea of where this is coming from. So I'm going to kind of address it as I go through it, and I hope that is helpful to people. And the reason why I wanted to do this series was because I'm sure that from my experience and the people that I see, the issues that people go through generally are relatively similar. And that's not to say that your experience isn't completely individual, because it totally is, but usually there are things going on for people that other people can relate to. And I hope that by addressing questions or suggestions that some people have, more people will find it helpful. And that's why I decided to start this series. So let's talk about why people don't want to get better. So first off, I haven't uploaded this video yet, but in the next month or so, I will be uploading a video about this idea that if you have mental ill health, you are kind of somehow broken or there's something wrong with you. Now, there is, in my view, in my experience, nothing wrong whatsoever with having mental ill health. And what has happened through the history of psychiatry is that emphasis has been placed on the individual person, and mental ill health is referred to as like an illness and something that, you know, you suffer from, and then maybe you see this expert or this professional and that's the thing that gets you better. And this is perpetuated through the media as well. You know, there are loads of stories of celebrities who say, oh, I was in a really dark place and then I went to a hospital, or then I sought this support, or then I was on these tablets and now I feel better. There is this mentality of I'm here and I should be up here and I'm not good enough as I am now. And that idea of getting better, I personally believe is very flawed. It implies that there's something wrong with you as you are now, and actually there is nothing wrong with you. And I think that a great benefit of therapy is when you actually start to look back over the things that have happened, over the experiences that you've had in your life. You can kind of work out how you ended up feeling the way that you do and why that is totally valid. It's kind of normal that after a breakup or after certain experience that we have, we will get low. And for some people, they get low for a much longer period than others, but there is sadness, and that's okay. There's also anger and loss and lots of other stuff going on after a breakup, in the same way that there would be after a bereavement. And you can check out my video on the loss cycle if you want to hear a bit more about that process that we go through when we lose people from our lives. But that's your body actually working perfectly. You know, getting depressed, getting depressed, as a result of experiences that we go through in our life is a normal part of our bodily process. You know, there's been stories of people having mental ill health throughout history. You know, why do you think Shakespeare wrote such incredible plays that involved madness and depression and mental health stuff? Because it's always been going on. It's just now we live in a society where it's very individually focused, and this is wrong with you and it's your fault and you need to fix yourself. And there are people that can help you, but it's very individually focused, and that's something that I think is slightly misplaced. I will do a full video where I talk about the whole fixed, broken mentality. I haven't done it yet, so I just thought I'd go into it a little bit there just to give you some background. So probably the reason why some people don't want to get better is because they understand that there's nothing wrong with them. You know, like society tells you that there's something wrong with you if you can't get out of bed every day and you can't function. There's a lot of stigma involved in the only thing I can do today is get up and make myself a drink and then go back to bed. It's like there's a hell of a lot of stigma involved in that because of the society that we live in. And once you take off all of that pressure and you focus on what you're able to do, often you'll realize that so much of our poor mental health and the pressure that we feel to get better comes from societal expectations of what we think we're meant to be doing with our life, when actually being is just fine. And I would say that this idea of getting better is something that you kind of have to come to terms with yourself. So if you don't want to get better, there actually is no better to get, because you're already good enough just as you are. So the notion that there's something wrong with you that you need to somehow recover from is something that basically doesn't exist until you feel that way, until you feel like there is something going on and I'm not happy with the way that I'm living and I would like to make changes. There's no getting better to be done. So to go into the kind of detail here, these things that you've said here about you want people to love you for you, like absolutely, and not just the confident, happy, attractive you. Now again, I'm going to say that society places so much pressure on us to be happy, to be confident, to look after ourselves, to project a life a certain way. And that's not the only way of living. And confidence is one trait. It's no more or less attractive than another. It's just a human trait, and everybody is made up of all sorts of different traits. And you're right that you want people to love you for you. So that's great. If you are not a confident person, there is nothing wrong with you not being a confident person. You don't have to be confident, or you don't have to be attractive in order to meet an expectation. And the other thing I would say is attractiveness, and this is why I did this, attractiveness is something that comes from an individual perspective, and there are people that I find attractive that other people would not find attractive. There are people that are attracted to certain things specifically. There are people that aren't attracted to people physically whatsoever. It's like a whole spectrum of thoughts and feelings and ways of being. But what I really liked about this is you saying that you want people to love you for you, because that is so important. And having that understanding that you want people to love you for you, that's not a bad thing. That's awesome to read. So I'm really happy to see that. And this notion here that you've said you can attract someone if you improve yourself, there's no improvement to be made. You are already you. And regardless of if you decided that you wanted to address your mental health concerns, from my experience of mental health, it's kind of like you are a person who is stuck in a single way of thinking and being, and that's it. And you don't really know what you think because you have so many conditions placed on you by others. But you're still the same you, you're just not fully aware of yourself. And then you go through the process where you maybe address some of your concerns, maybe change that mindset a bit. And then what happens is you align more with the things that make sense to you. So you just become closer to who you are. So you're the same you're just a kind of more sure of yourself you, because you know what you're doing is because you want to do it rather than because of pressure from others or other stuff going on. And you mentioned here about medication and therapy. After you start medication and therapy, you'll probably start getting your head around these issues very quickly. And the more you put off getting help, the worse it will get. So I get very aware of painting medication and therapy to be a magical treatment that will fix you. For some people, absolutely, medication and therapy is a huge driver to change, but change comes from the individual. And I have said this in so many of my videos before. You have to want to change things. And it's not a case of when I go to therapy, I will get fixed, or when I take this medication, I will get fixed, because it's not the therapy and it's not the medication that fixes you. Now, with medication, we know that with some mental ill health, there is a chemical imbalance in the brain, and it will address the chemical imbalance in the brain and make things easier for you, but it will not pull you out of your black and white way of thinking. Now, what I mean by that is that you will still view things in the same way unless you get a different perspective. Now that can mean going to therapy, absolutely. That can mean speaking to friends and family, absolutely. It can also mean changing your own perspective. But all of these things you have to want to do. If you don't want to change, there is nothing wrong with that. And I would say as well that it absolutely has to come from you, because there is nothing fundamentally wrong with you as you are now. And whether or not you exist in a way that aligns with what society says you should be or not, you are still perfectly valid just as you are. With any kind of change that comes from the individual, I will always say, what do you want? Like, what is the life that you want to lead? How does that look? What type of person are you? And for me, that was when the change happened, and that's when I see a lot of people's change happen, because they don't want to stay feeling a certain way about themselves, or they don't want to not be able to spend time with family and friends. They don't want to not feel passionate about certain things in life. Like, they want a richer life, and that is the driver for change. But you can absolutely just want to sit in your pajamas and watch Netflix on your sofa every day for the rest of whatever, so long as you are not hurting anybody else or hurting yourself in the process. Absolutely, there's nothing wrong with that. There's no kind of better and there's no kind of worse. There is just being. And however you are and however you want to be is perfectly acceptable. You know, it's not like somebody who lives their life and has loads and loads of friends and goes to work and earns a decent wage and does the job that they love and has all these hobbies and passions and stuff. It's not like at the end of their life they get a certificate. Like, congratulations, you won at life, you win first place. Like, the whole point is that you live every day doing the thing that aligns with you that you want to do. And whether that is spending your life seeing people or doing things or whatever, or whether that is like watching Netflix, playing games, I don't know, sleeping. You know, if you want to sleep for your whole life, there's nothing wrong with that. As long as that makes sense for you, absolutely. There may come a time in your life where you think, do you know what? I think I want to do things differently. And that's when you can start to think, well, how can I support myself to do things differently? You know, is it worth seeking medical input around my depression? Is it worth maybe seeking out a therapist? You know, is it worth speaking to my family? And if it is, then do it. There is just the choice on whether or not your life as it is how you want to live, and whether or not it's serving you. And if it isn't serving you, then you have the opportunity to change that. And the important bit about any change is that it's self-led from you. It's you noticing that you are not in alignment in some areas in your life. It doesn't feel authentic to you. You're living a life that doesn't feel right to you, not right for society or right for expectations or right for your family or right for anybody else, but it doesn't feel right for you. And that is when you possibly would start to ask some questions to possibly be able to think of how things may be different. And you absolutely, if you are in that place where you want things to change, you absolutely can, but it is the hardest thing ever to change yourself. It is so hard. And that's me talking as somebody who has had experience of the mental health system for, oh my God, 18 years. And I've probably had about 15 years of therapy that did nothing, because I just was not in the place where I was willing to change whatsoever. You can sit in front of a therapist and have therapy and it do nothing and nothing change, because the change doesn't come from going to therapy and seeing a therapist. The change comes from you. As I said, I am not giving anybody direct advice with this series whatsoever, but I'm just challenging you to possibly open up a bit of a different way of thinking about things. And I just hope that's somehow in some way helpful. Firstly, to Florence47, thank you so much for sending in that suggestion. And if anybody has any more suggestions for videos or anything that they would like me to cover in this series or otherwise, please drop me a message. My contact details are in the description box below, or you can leave a comment on this video. If you liked this video, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and if you click on the notification bell button thing, then it'll tell you when I upload a new video, so you won't miss it. I'm really looking forward to doing more of these videos in this series, so yeah, drop me suggestions, drop me comments. I hope wherever you are, you're keeping safe and well in these crazy times, and I will catch you in the next one.